I'm gonna need you guys to use a microphone today, or I can hand you this microphone. But because we're on TV and we don't do this all the time, we need to be a little more formal in how we host our meeting today. So number one, let's start with some welcomes. We are running about 5 minutes behind. Let's see if we can't catch up. My name is Scott Benson, 3rd District City Councilman. Honor and privilege to be here. Let's go.
Kathy Klein, Waste Management, Community Relations.
Ricky Ackerman, East Side Community Network.
Scott Binder, I'm with U.S. Ecology.
Carol Miller, Wayne State University.
Natalie Jacob, Green Living Science, Chair of Recycling and Waste Reduction Subcommittee.
Margaret Weber, Zero Waste Detroit.
Betsy Palazzola, City of Detroit Housing and Revitalization.
Samantha Pickering, Green Living Science.
Frank Schulmeister, Energy Sciences.
Kendall Kuhneman, Energy Sciences and Chair of the Energy Waste Reduction Subcommittee.
Natalie Osborne, Next Energy.
Raymond Landsberg with U.S. Ecology.
Christian Koch with Lena Green, Michigan.
Raquel Winton, City of Detroit, BC Environmental Affairs.
Michelle Jackson, Sustainable Community Detroit.
Irma Leapart, Sierra Club and co-chair of the Green Task Force Water Subcommittee.
Delbert Brown, Focus Hope.
Galen Hardy, Zero Waste Detroit.
Elizabeth Garver, Department of Environmental Quality.
Melissa Cooper Sargent, the Ecology Center.
V. Heimach, the Charters Working for Environmental Justice.
Lia Watts, Michigan Interfaith, Power and Light.
Hi, I'm Diane Cheklich with D2 Solar and the Renewable Energy Subcommittee.
Good afternoon, Catherine Underwood, City Planning Commission.
Hi there, Michael Dorsey, and I'll be your speaker in a couple days.
Renee Wallace, Food Plus Detroit, Doers Consulting Alliance, and Chair of the Organics Recycling Subcommittee.
Jay Penfield, Power Home Solar.
Regina Strong, MDQ.
And so with that, we've done our introductions, and so let's go ahead and start our first presentation, and that's going to be Regina Strong from MDQ. The stage.
Can you hear me okay? Is this better? I hear myself echoing. Hi, everybody. This is a weird position to be in. I'm kind of on the other side of where I was the last time I was at one of these meetings, but I'm Regina Strong with the Michigan Department of Environmental Quality. And as you all know, elections have consequences, sometimes good, sometimes bad. In the case of the state, the good news is we have a governor who has prioritized environmental issues, which is a very exciting prospect and something quite frankly different than we've had to deal with in a long time. And so it's a great thing. It's led to a lot of changes. In particular, at the Michigan Department of Environmental Quality, it's created a reorganization. And so the agency that you know as MDEQ on Monday becomes the Department of Environment, Great Lakes, and Energy. And we are using EAGLE, not to be confused with Deagle or Meagle. We have to say Eagle. I've been told this and I've practiced because we don't want to use the department, but we do want to use it more like people say LARA as opposed to an acronym like DEQ. So besides the name change, there are a lot of new things that are happening. The Office of the Michigan Agency for Energy is now part of the new EAGLE. Public Service Commission will work through EAGLE. The Office of Great Lakes that was in the DNR will now be part of the new EAGLE. And one of the exciting things that the governor did very early on, I think it was her second executive order, is create a couple things that I think are very, very relevant for the city of Detroit and for this region. One of those things is she created the Office of the Environmental Justice Public Advocate. And that office is meant to elevate the issue of environmental justice, which we've studied, we've task forced, we've talked about, but we really haven't given, I think, the focus on the state level that it deserves. So I have an announcement that environmental justice public advocate is me. And so that will be my role for the state. I will be the person who creates that office and works with all of you to make sure that when there are environmental justice issues that bubble up, there is an opportunity to talk about them, to work interagency. One of the other things in the executive order is an interagency response team for environmental justice. And what that means is, as opposed to a complaint coming in over here and never being heard over there, it is an attempt to have government talk to itself, right? And so the role that I'm taking on is about being the advocate for justice within the government as well as externally. So I see it as a really exciting opportunity and something we haven't had before. It's kind of funny because with all that we've kind of been through on the justice front in Michigan, I was at a meeting earlier in the week with people from Wisconsin and Minnesota and I think it was Illinois. And they were like so excited about the creation of this role. They were like, how can we get our governors to do this? Because they all have Democratic governors. And it was really interesting because what we see as our struggles happen all over the country in states, and everybody handles it a little bit differently. And so this is, if any of you were engaged at all in like the Environmental Justice Working Group or any of the things that happened last year, this is similar to what was recommended as the ombudsman, but it takes it a step further and combines those. So I'm excited to be in this role because I think it's a great opportunity to have someone championing issues that impact communities directly, particularly communities of color, particularly communities that are lower in income and typically don't have a voice, not just publicly, but within government. So I'm excited to play that role. And I'm also excited, you know, she's gonna join me, I hope, soon. It's been a busy day, but the new director, Liesl Clark, comes from the renewable community. She had her own business for many years. She was connected to Five Lakes Energy, worked with Douglas Jester, if you're familiar with him. A lot of folks who did a lot of great research. And so I'd like to say this, she's a director who gets it. She is right now meeting with Detroit District staff at the Cadillac building, which I just not literally ran, but rushed over from in my car, but I didn't speed. And this is being recorded. Because so much of what the focus has been about Lansing, but really it has to be about the communities. And so there is a concerted effort by the department, not just in my role, but throughout, to try to make sure that the director isn't just in Lansing, that she's out in the community, that she's meeting with people. The same you will see with the governor and the lieutenant governor. The goal in this administration is to really hear what people have to say and make sure you're addressing needs, not just for one constituency, but for all and for community, which again is my roots and where I come from and why I care about the new direction of the, I always want to say agency, I'm supposed to say department, so you'll hear me go back and forth, but of the department. And it's really interesting, before she gets here, I have to tell you, it's really interesting being on the other side from where I was before, because you see things differently, you learn things. I've learned a lot. It's only been, I started about a month and a half ago, almost 2 months ago now. And it's really interesting working within this department because there's so many really brilliant people who are scientists and are working really, really hard. And so much of that never meets the light of day, like folks don't know what's going on within the department. And similarly, they maybe only hear from community when they go to a meeting or they go to a public hearing, and they don't have that much interaction. So I've had some really interesting conversations with people who are like, you know, we're trying to get it right, or people are like, I don't get why people are mad about this, or I don't get. So it's been kind of fun. The best part of those conversations is when I'm sitting across the table from somebody maybe 4 months ago who I might have, I won't say yelled at, but raised my voice at a hearing, and now we're sitting like this close. You know, so it lends itself to a different type of conversation, but I think that's an important aspect of why having elections that have consequences, so people who've worked in community actually have a voice within government, and people in government learn that they should connect with community, because I think together is where the fix actually happens. And I don't have a lot of formal comments. Just want to kind of give you an idea of the transition of the organization. Next week is a busy week, so Monday we become Eagle. There's a huge Earth Day celebration. I heard you mention you're having Earth Day on Saturday. Thousands of kids come to Constitution Hall, where the agency is located, and they're like, the walls are covered with pictures. There's an art contest, so it's a really like celebration of our state and where we are. So I really would love to hear if any of you have questions. Hopefully I can try to answer them. Any questions? Yes.
So what we're going to need to do is
hand her the mic.
Curated Q&A. So
yes.
You're going to need to stand, or someone's going to need to come towards you.
Oh, no problem.
Cool. Hi, Regina. Again, Lia Watts here from Michigan Interfaith Power and Light. I'm going to ask an explosive question that might have explosive effects on the sound. So Governor, I have so many questions, but I will limit myself to one. So the governor joined this U.S. Climate Alliance, which is this alliance with governors from all parties that is about taking meaningful action on climate change from a state level, and that's committed to the Paris Principles. And I'm wondering, so as I know you know, right, we've got to cut our carbon emissions in half by 2030. Meanwhile, our state renewable portfolio standard is a far cry from that. So I'm wondering, in your role and with the governor's new leadership over DEQ and PSC and these other agencies, what are her plans to really get our carbon emissions down on that time frame?
So I think that's a really good question. The meeting that I mentioned, I was there with other states. It was a regional conversation of new Democratic governors and administrations who've made the commitment to the U.S. Climate Alliance, and now what's next, right? How do you get there? And I think that's a work in progress, but I think the determination to get there is there. I can't tell you exactly all the steps that will happen. One thing I can say is there's a level of coordination that I think, I won't say it wasn't there before because I wasn't there, but it feels new, I'll just say that. So, I mean, a lot of things feel new, but this feels really new in that all of the agencies that you mentioned are working together right now to figure that out. Because there are a lot of pieces to that pie, right? Some of it resides in EGLE, or DEQ, soon to be EGLE. A lot of it resides there, but some of it is other places, and some of it has to be fixed legislatively, and some of it has to be fixed. So there's a whole mix to how that's going to happen. So I will tell you the conversations are happening, the work continues to figure that out, and there's a commitment to make it happen. I was pleasantly surprised when I went to this meeting that, how you go to these meetings, right, and they're comparing states, and they give you charts, and it usually makes sense if the line that indicates your state is a consistent color, except that this one, it changed on every chart, so I was trying to keep up. But Michigan's is trending really well in a lot of areas in terms of progress toward the U.S. Climate Alliance goal, which is really the Paris goal, right? And so I left there feeling like we were on the right track, but there are a lot of things that we need to do, and that is continuing, I will tell you that. So stay tuned. Definitely we'll be back to give more info.
Hi. I had a question about the Chrysler expansion. There's a hearing tonight. The environmental justice community has reached out a couple times asking to prolong the comment period. And by last night, we were still told that was still looked at. So I guess overarchingly, the question is, with this sort of change in leadership and change in wind, do you think that we can see a difference in how environmental justice communities specifically are engaged in these kind of processes, and specifically with Chrysler, because I was asked to ask?
So I will tell you, I'm just learning about, I won't be able to be at the hearing tonight because I have another commitment, but I'm just learning about the request to extend the comment period, and I know that's being looked at. I don't think a determination has been there, and I haven't had a chance to have the conversations. But the goal of this position is to ultimately be engaged in those conversations up front, as opposed to I'm kind of now finding out about them as they're already in progress. When we get good at this, we'll be able to, you guys will be able to reach out to me directly as well as whoever in that division, and I can help work through the department to try to figure out if it can be extended, and if it can't, why not? And ask those questions and have those conversations and be that champion on the inside. So on the short notice that I have, because I just literally just saw this email, I definitely am having those conversations, and I'm hopeful that it will. I know it technically is supposed to end today, right? After the hearing. So if you got a comment, you're supposed to get it in by tonight, right? And it's really, so I'll give a little of my limited knowledge based on what I've read, is that in theory, based on what's being proposed, there are 2 permits that kind of offset each other, or that's the way it was described to me, that one is a reduction, one is a bit of an increase, but they balance out. And I don't know any of the details beyond that. But that's the kind of thing that having someone in my role can help at least shepherd. I may not be able to obviously wave a magic wand and fix everything, but at least I can be that champion and try to make sure that it happens, or at least is discussed.
I'm not going to take up all the time. Just that reduction is in Warren and the increase is here. So, yeah. So, again, as you know, we're looking at a zip code that's already really struggling. So,
yeah, I just saw that. So, I saw that too. And see, that's the funny part. You ask the questions like, okay, so this one is here, and that one is there, and then I'm still waiting on the rest of the answers. You're welcome. Are there other questions?
Yeah, just to follow
We need you on the microphone.
You might have to come toward the microphone because we are being recorded. Here you go.
So just to follow up on that, and I'm a resident over in the area, and we didn't really know about the hearing, and it wasn't really announced until last Wednesday's meeting. So we've only had a week to get word out in the community. We really haven't had time. We've been making phone calls, knocking on doors, trying to get people there tonight, but we just haven't had enough time. And there's so much information to take in. So
that was one of my questions, which I haven't gotten an answer. Like, when was notification given? How long ago was it given? What was the window of time? You're saying you found out about it last week, right?
Right, and I'm sure that notices were put in papers and things were done that way, but as far as a part of the process with FCA and with the city, it really wasn't put up on a screen, and announced in that way. So we haven't had enough time to process it and look at the information for the permit, to learn the details about what the permit even means. So we're just kind of taking it.
I totally get that. I mean, one of the things that, I saw as a challenge in my former life at Sierra Club was things like that, the notification gaps that we sometimes have. And official notification doesn't mean it gets to the community, right? So looking at those processes, and I'll be looking to all of you to give me feedback and ideas on how to make that better. What are the best ways to ensure that the community understands, has time to learn about whatever is being permitted or whatever the issue is, and what kind of window of time? I mean, there are some statutory windows of time related to public meetings, public hearings, these kinds of things, and they all have categories and very different ways of doing them. But and they're based on a lot of things, but notification, there is some subjectivity there, right? Like, how do you let people know in what places, and who do you include in that process? And so I commit to you guys that I'm going to find out more about how we can get that extended, because I appreciate what you're saying. I just can't commit to it now because I don't know. I could go, when you're new, you can say, well, I didn't know, so I just told them, yeah, extend it. But then that, I don't know that I could get away with that, but I could try.
while we have Regina here, let's make sure that we use her time effectively. So we right now in this room have a direct line of communication to the director of MDQ and to the governor's office. So let's make sure, so if there are issues that we want to try to get resolved, let's offer suggestions on how to do that. So if you think there's a gap in how we're notifying people at the state level, offer suggestions. You could do this might be helpful. This is also how the community sees an improvement in that communications process. Because we also saw something like that when it came to US Ecology and what was going on the east side, and they're still in public hearings because there was a communications gap with our non-English speaking residents in that area. So those type of suggestions will be very helpful. So I don't want to lose this opportunity to get this message up to state, up the chain to the governor's office.
Thanks, and that is a good point. Besides talking to me later, you can talk to me now. So if you think of things that you think would make that better, please let me know. And I will definitely, try to keep track of, I know what I already think, and a lot of it mirrors what you think, but I also need to know directly how it impacts the communities that you live in, that you work in, the things that you're working on. One of my goals in this role is to ensure that we can get it right up front in terms of thinking about things like language barriers and access and timing and things that if you're just going along checking boxes, you're going to say, well, we did this and we did that, but what is the impact of that? And so that's an important part of what I want to do while I'm here is help fix that. I mean, I can't just walk in and change it all right away, but I think that's a big part of it. I've spent a lot of time advising in the limited time that I've been there and having conversations about community engagement, because I think that's an important piece that the department can definitely improve on. And so what's really interesting is coming from a community of activists, we have no trouble communicating what we want, right? We have strategic ways of doing that. But going to a department full of scientists, it's a whole different thing. And so the things that, one of the questions I asked, which I thought was a fairly innocent question that ended up in a long conversation, was, do we have to wait until we get to this point to let people know? Can't we kind of let people know along the way? And I got blank stares, and I didn't quite get it. But then somebody said to me, well, but we don't have a conclusion yet, because that's how scientists think, right? And we as community people think, okay, but you could at least let us know what's going on along the way. And so so then I had to redo that meeting and say, okay, so here's what I meant by that, and do a little translation. So it's kind of cool. They explain things in diagrams and about science to me, and I explain things in diagrams about community to them. And I think that's why we work well together. Any other questions?
I'm just wondering if you're envisioning how you can use your position to engage the mayor and deepen his appreciation of some of these dynamics and issues, because my guess is that in your position, you'd get his ear in a different way.
So I don't know if I do, maybe the governor does, maybe the director does, but I think what I've already learned in the short time that I'm there is it takes a lot of intergovernmental communication to get things done. And sometimes things might come to the city, or they might come to the state, or they might go to different departments within the city or the state, or somebody might go to the EPA. And it's important that everybody's talking to everybody else, and that we're in meetings and we figure out, how to get it right. And it's a work in progress, because I agree with you. I believe if you've seen the governor right out the gate, environment's been really important to her. And I think she's communicated that with all the stakeholders, with other, levels of government, and that continues to be part of the conversation. So I am hopeful that the elevation at the state level will help elevate things, the work that this task force does, the work that is coming out of the administration. There are opportunities for us all to work together. So that's my goal. But if he would listen, I definitely would. I'm just not sure. It might not be my call, but it might be the governor's. Let's see.
So what are you going to do to help educate our younger folks about your office and what's going on?
I would love to hear your ideas on that. As you can tell, I like to talk, so I'm willing to meet with whoever in the community and find out particularly for young folks, for them to gain an understanding of how their environment impacts their lives. Because I think they've, until you get sick or something happens that's a big incident in your community, you maybe don't pay a lot of attention except to the good parts of environment, or the flowers, the trees, the, you know, the blue skies, but understanding the inner workings of justice and environment is something that I'd love to, in any way I can, work with young people, community, whoever, because I think that's an important element, and it's going up and up and up, right? People are starting to realize, you know, how we would try, in my Sierra Club days, we would try strategically to talk about incidents and different things separately and not always talk about that banner of climate change, because then sometimes you end up in these weird political conversations about what is happening every day, when really the goal there is to figure out how to stop the impact on Earth, which manifests itself in all these little things that happen, these incidents, and making the connections. So just let me know. I will definitely leave my info.
Hi, Regina.
Hi.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Regina and I shared an office for a short time. But, and she's awesome, so we've got a good person. Thank you. My question, or kind of a comment, so I've been on a couple of like public advisory groups with researchers from Wayne or U of M. I have kind of a science background, but I'm not a scientist, but I'm not fearful of it, intimidated by it. But is there any opportunity, or do they already exist, these kind of community advisory groups? I know we have the one that the governor tried to get rid of, where the industry is advising the department. But what about something that's comparable with community members? Is there a way to create that, or does it already exist?
So two things. There are still appointments being done right now to different commissions and committees, and I know sometimes it's hard to ferret that out and figure out. During the transition period, there was an opportunity where they were asking people, you know, I think it was on Facebook and a lot of other places, to just put in your kind of generic interests for commissions and committees, and I know all of those have not been filled. My hope is that if that's something that you're interested in, I can find out more about that and make sure that folks are connected to that, because there are still opportunities to put in information to be part of those conversations. Some of the commissions, you know, meet in Lansing or they meet different places, but if you're willing to make the drive, I think it is important to have people who get it on different commissions, and when Director Clark, hopefully she'll get here before we're done, she may know a little bit more about which ones we're still trying to fill. But please let me know if I can be helpful in that arena, because I think that's really important. Any other questions?
Just kind of building on what Irma talked about, having those kind of opportunities are really, really important. For example, with the legislation that's currently in the process of being proposed around the sustainable materials management, so that's a big, big shift for our communities. And having those opportunities to talk to the scientists, to talk to some of the legislators and others who are making decisions and they're a bit removed from where it actually happens, you know, in the community is gonna be helpful. You know, I had an opportunity to serve in a group that helped to inform some of that. But as we're moving forward to the next step, being able to have those times and places where we can access folks and really talk through it, because it's going to impact what happens at a local level, and being able to transition that and have that understanding.
That's a really good point, and I agree. And that's part of what's really good about this new environmental justice public advocate role, like the longest title ever. It's just being created. So there are a lot of things that could happen that haven't happened yet, which is why I'd love to hear your ideas in terms of, there's some recommendations from past work groups and efforts to really bubble up some opportunities like certain community advisory groups, but none of that has been formed as of yet. But there are some existing commissions and opportunities, so that conversation about what would be good and what would be helpful is good. So please share that in more detail with me, and I'll see how we can either work that into something existing or add it to what's being created now.
I was just, oh, sorry. Don't, yeah, trip. Speaking about solutions, so one of the things we had talked about late last year was with the creation of a role such as yours, whether there's an opportunity to have something like monthly coffee hours or just office hours in the city instead of in Lansing, where people can stop by and actually come talk to you personally or to your staff or whoever else is there, because that could be really useful. And at the same time show an openness to the community that, you know, we're not just sending cold emails, but we're actually happy to talk to you in person kind of thing.
That's a really good idea, and I've heard that in a couple incarnations from several folks, and I think that's an important part of how I see this role. You know, we all get so immersed in the work we do every day, and so my goal is not to be in Lansing all the time, although now I'm commuting, which is lots of fun. But to be in Detroit, to be in Flint, to be in Benton Harbor, to be in, you know, in addition to my role, there's also a tribal liaison. So it's a big state, but I think it's important to focus on kind of the epicenter of where a lot of the justice issues happen, and then work around the state. So yes, that's something definitely in the plan. It might, like the time intervals, I'm still, in a perfect world, it would be like weekly or every other week, but who knows if that's actually possible. But I think that would be a good thing if we can.
You know, so the state reps have these coffee hours. I try to go to Sherry Gayton Yoko, is my rep. Go to her coffee hours, wealth of information, so maybe a way to piggyback on those. I mean, it's just kind of popped in my mind. You don't have to have your own, join them occasionally.
That's a good idea. Yep. I like that idea. Always want to build greater relationships with our legislators, like you too, Scott. Do you do coffee hours?
I have an office.
Oh, excuse me, he has an office. He's like, I don't have to go to a coffee shop. I have an office.
I do have an office too, though.
Any other questions?
Thank you. I know you said stay tuned on the energy policy front, but I'm wondering if you can give any more insight into some of the plans that the administration might be coming up with. And I'm coming from a place of we're about to lose net metering here in the state of Michigan, and the rate case that's being proposed that will be decided on in the next couple of weeks has some measures in it that are considered further disincentives for solar energy in the state of Michigan. So any insight that you can give us that could give us encouragement about being on the right track here in Michigan would be appreciated. Thank you.
So although I can't give you specific details, my push is to ensure that we're on the right track with being part of that conversation. I don't know how many of you know Dan Scripps. He is new to the Public Service Commission, and he's someone who gets it, I will say that. And I think there are opportunities there are different people looking at the same things that have been sitting on desks, you know, for a year or two, coming in different incarnations, you know, opportunities with the rate cases and other things. We've seen all these things before, and the push to, you know, the net metering thing is a real difficult one because each time you hear one thing and then when cases come out or RRPs come out, there's something else with that. And so all I can tell you on that now, other than, you know, I can't give you the specifics that you want, I wish I could, but I can tell you that the focus is there, it's a priority. Figuring out how to get it done is what's happening right now.
All right. So with that, let's thank Regina. Regina, thank you for coming out today. And so if I'm not mistaken, this is a brand new type position. I'm not sure we've had anything like this at the state of Michigan before. So you are breaking new grounds, and this is a wide open space, so thank you. And so once again, this is an opportunity when there is a brand new office and this is wide open space, you have the opportunity as the residents and citizens of the state to help shape how that office moves. And so suggestions, I believe, it sounded to me, would be welcome on how you think we can better solve some of the issues and problems and the gaps that we've seen in the state before. So please, and Regina comes from an advocacy background, so she gets it. And so this is a great person to have in that space. So thank you, Regina. You want to have something else?
Yeah, I just wanted to share. I don't have enough cards, unfortunately, because we are changing our name. I started, 2 months ago, and they gave me 50 cards. So they're like, we're changing our name. You don't need a card. So, and then also, I had to wait until the executive order creating this role became a real thing, which is the 22nd, the 60-day window, so it can no longer be challenged by the legislature. So before I could even say that I was actually the environmental justice public advocate, it's been weird. But I wanted to share with you my email address. And it's strong, S-T-R-O-N-G, like muscles, strong, R, the number 1, at michigan.gov. And I'll also share my phone number, 517-284-6727. So please feel free to call me, email me. I'm willing to, if I don't know the answer, I'm definitely willing to try to find out.
So Regina, thank you very much. And so we've had the mayor come and address our organization, this group as well. Regina, would it be possible to get an audience with the governor with the Green Task Force?
Yes, I will work.
Okay, so what do we need to do? Do we need to get you any information, any dates, anything of that nature?
So you always meet, the third Thursday? You meet the third Thursdays? So if you needed to do a special meeting on another day, could you? I just know her schedule is very difficult, but if we have a little flexibility, I absolutely will work on getting that done.
So then the gauntlet has been thrown out. If there was an opportunity to get an audience with the governor, we'll be willing to have a special meeting date and time? Okay, so yes. So we'll work around the governor's schedule if we can get that audience. And would we be willing to go to Cadillac Place to do that versus here, or would we be willing to do that here? Okay, wherever we can take it, we'll get it done, as long as it's here in Detroit.
Absolutely.
Okay, well, cool. Thank you for that very much, Regina. So we have one more speaker who is not here just yet. Are we ready for our updates? Subcommittees? Water?
Thank you. We met this past week, and we received an update from the Detroit Water and Sewage Department about their capital improvement program management operations. And this is where they talk about some of the infrastructure work that they're going to be doing, water mains and sewer mains and such. Our next meeting in May 19th, I think it's the third Tuesday from 1 to 3, we'll have someone there from Eat Safe Fish. One of the items in the Detroit Water Agenda deals with, it's an environmental justice issue because we know that a lot of people in low income fish for food, sustenance, I think, or that's not the right word. Sustenance, okay. And so if the fish is not healthy, if it's something wrong with it, if there are these limits, you know, we need to get the word out. We need to be more active in trying to say to people, it's okay to eat, but only this much, or only, you know, whatever variety of fish it is, there are limits to it. So there's going to, it's a state, Michigan Department of Health and Human Services, the Eat Safe Fish program is through them, but they have hired a Detroit representative, and so that person will come to the meeting. We'll get an opportunity to meet with them and maybe strategize on ways to get the word out and try to keep people healthy. No, I think that's it.
Okay. Thank you, Irma. All right, how about recycling and waste reduction?
Hi, everyone. So we meet the fourth Monday of every month, so we actually will be meeting this Monday on Earth Day at 3 o'clock at the DPW yard at 5800 Russell. So we'd love to have anybody there who's interested. So at our last meeting, we spent time talking about some of the things that we're working on through DPW, and so we're working on a mailer that's going to go out to every resident who is eligible for their curbside recycling program. So that's in the works. As soon as they announce the haulers for the city, we'll get that out. And we're hoping that with that, we'll encourage more residents in the city to sign up for a free recycling cart for their home. We are helping DPW right now to apply for a $1 million grant through DEQ. So with that, we're looking at covering residential, commercial, multifamily, and public space recycling. So we'll be applying for that, but at the same time coming up with what that education plan will look like. The county announced their household hazardous waste date, so May 11th will be in Dearborn, August 10th will be in Westland, October 19th will be in Taylor, and the fourth one, they are looking at having it again in Detroit. But Detroit residents have access to a household hazardous waste location weekly, so they're trying to see if we can encourage more people to come out on a Saturday. The curbside recycling rate for the city is 27.28%, so we're hoping to get that up to 40% by the end of next year. And then we have the Earth Day celebration this Saturday. Next Thursday, Green Living Science, the nonprofit I'm the director of, we're going to be hosting 750 fourth grade students from Detroit Public Schools Community District at our facility at the Recycling Center to educate them on all things related to waste, recycling, and the environment, and encouraging the education of those 3 R's. So, any questions? No? Thank you. Oh, yes.
You need a microphone. No, gotta use a microphone.
I was just wondering the location of the Detroit Detroit Hazardous Waste.
It's 2000 East Ferry Street. And they're open every Thursday from 7:30 to 2, and then on Saturdays from 8 to 2. Yes? Oh, microphone.
I'm wondering what the $1 million grant application for the DEQ is for.
It's for recycling infrastructure. So what it will be paying for is for carts. So for the public space recycling, we'll be looking at bins that we can put out in public spaces. For the municipal and commercial and multifamily facilities, I think it's 800 gallon or some large gallon containers that the city will then service. So they'll look into starting their own route. And then for residential, it will cover the cost of carts for residents. Yes.
At today's meeting, we were also even talking about the city getting a truck that's dedicated specifically for those pickups that we were saying needs to have Detroit Recycles and Michigan Recycles on it, so it'd be a driving advertisement. But those elements that Natalie mentioned, those are significant step-ups for the city because multifamily units and businesses were not on, and public spaces were nowhere part of the program.
And lastly, I forgot to mention, the week of April 29th through May 3rd, we're also going to be participating in a recycling audit. So with the assistance of RRS, we're going to be actually going out, looking at cards, tracking this in an app that they've created for us. And then the Tuesday through Friday, we're going to be at a MRF, which is a materials recovery facility, actually sorting through the recyclables that come in so that we can get a better idea of what Detroiters are trying to recycle so we can frame our education in a way that makes sense. So we do have a few open spots available for that. So if anyone is interested, please see me afterwards.
So we have read in the news about China no longer accepting American recycled items. Are you working on anything that ensures that the stuff that goes in the blue bins actually does get recycled?
So we're staying informed in conversations with the state and also with the county to learn more about how that's affecting our state. Currently, our materials are still going to a MRF. As far as where they're sending those materials, we haven't been able to get some of those answers, but with some of the grant opportunities through the DEQ, they are hoping to increase processing facilities throughout the state. All right, thank you.
Thank you. How about renewable energy? All right, Diane.
Hi, everyone. My name is Diane Cheklich. I'm the co-chair of the Renewable Energy Subcommittee of the Green Task Force. And we meet every Thursday at noon at 7700 2nd Avenue in the North End. And all are welcome, so hope to see some faces there next time. We have finalized our priorities for the group for the year, and number one on our list is community solar. That is a concept that we're trying to promote more of here in Detroit. We have had a couple false starts, but we want to get back up and try and make that happen. We have a subgroup that is focused on that and making recommendations to the City Council. Second is communication and collaborations to community. We want to get the word out about renewable energy. It's not something that's on the tip of everyone's tongue, so we want to make sure that our communities understand that better. And we did some good work last year. We want to build on that. And one of the things we have going is a weekly radio program, WNUC 96.7 FM, and also WNUC.org every Wednesday from 5 till 6. Reverend Ross holds a radio program called Solar, Solar, Solar. And you can tune in and learn more about the cool projects that are happening in Detroit and learn more about solar as a renewable energy. We are also planning to hold one of our meetings. Our June meeting will be in the evening, so they could be more accessible for community members, and we're trying to get the word out about that. And then finally, we're focused on understanding policy implications of the rate case and also DTE's franchise agreement with the City of Detroit. So we have subgroups within our committee that are focused on each one of those three areas. And for those of you who were here at last month's Green Task Force, you might remember that I talked about a misinformation campaign that is coming out from DTE, and we talked about how can we as a group and as a city council respond to that. And Councilman Benson offered to promote a resolution within the city council, and in response to his offer, we have drafted a resolution of support for solar within the City of Detroit. So we appreciate that offer and look forward to hearing the next steps on that. Any questions? Yes, Heidi. Oh.
You said you guys are meeting every Thursday right now?
Oh, that was a misstatement. It's every second Thursday. I'm sorry about that. Once a month. Yeah, it's a Thursday before the Green Task Force. Thank you for that correction. Anything else? Betsy.
Hello. What's the timing on the reso that you guys are working on for support for solar? The draft that you have?
It's already been submitted to Councilman Benson, so it's within City Council right now. Do you want to? No comment? Okay, so soon. Any other questions?
In Southwest Detroit, where many groups are working to influence what happens with the Windsor-Detroit Bridge Authority, and one concept is how they can incorporate renewable energy into that major development. Has your subcommittee looked into that or made any outreach around the Bridge Authority?
Not to my knowledge, but we can definitely do that because I think the opportunity to focus on projects. Betsy, were you involved in any discussion with that on the feasibility study or no?
I'm sorry,
yeah, near the bridge area to incorporate renewable energy into the plans there? Okay. We'd love to follow up about that, and if there's opportunity for some type of a project, we'd love to understand that better and work together on it. Thank you. Anything else? All right, thank you for your attention.
Thank you, Diane. And so to answer the question, so Diane and Delbert, they did submit a draft resolution, which we received, and we did submit, had it written up and voted on and approved by City Council this past Tuesday, 9-0. So it is no longer with the City Council. It is now in the public record. And so thank you, Diane and Delbert, for making that happen. That deserves a hand clap. So that will be considered a win, and that is a direct reflection. That's a voice of City Council, so your governing body saying that we support community solar and we want to ensure that that becomes something that we see in the future. Now, Diane also gave me a big challenge because she showed me what that came out of the solar industry today, and Chi-Town makes milestone renewable energy commitment. So Chicago has committed to reaching 100% clean renewable energy by the year 2035. Now, yeah, so now what I will say is that a resolution does not mean you have to take action. What I will also say is that we will look at this, and we also have introduced our greenhouse gas ordinance for the city of Detroit, and we are not as aggressive with our goals. So we're going to have to take a relook at rethink our goals and our strategy. And it also says that Chicago is asking for a plan of how they achieve that goal, which should be done by the year 2020, and they're looking to go 100% renewable on its transportation fleet, so its buses and trains, electrified basically, by the year 2040. So we're also looking at that, and something I've been pushing for at City Council. We're going to spend $307 million on our fleet, including our buses, by the year within the next 5 years. And so this is a good opportunity to commit to having green electric buses, things of that nature. So we've got to be able to make that leap as well. So thank you for this, and we'll see what we can do to achieve that goal, and maybe even set the bar and not chase the bar. So I'd much rather see Detroit be the tip of the spear versus Chicago claim that name. So that's something we're going to work on. Next, how about organics recycling?
Thank you. Good day, everyone. All righty. So with our committee, as you know, organics recycling is following the lead and the work that's been done on traditional recycling. So it's good to have an effort to follow. Part of our focus is on helping to support developing an enabling environment around the policy. So there's 3 things that our subcommittee is focused on to assist with that. One is breaking down Part 115, that is at the state level legislation, so that we have understanding of what that looks like and how it affects the local legislation. We're also looking at the climate action plan, so we understand how we can support that work as it relates to compost as a solution to help with climate change, as well as the Sustainability Action Agenda has action items in it that directly talk about composting. So we're looking at those to see how they align with the priorities that our committee has established. And those 3 things will allow us to be able to provide information not only to folks that participate in this meeting, but also to council members and others in the city around what it could look like at a diverse set of scales. Because we can't travel everywhere, we're establishing a speakers bureau with folks who have experience in doing this work all across the country. So we've been in conversation with the U.S. Compost Council. They hosted a commercial level training here in Michigan last year. There 47 people participated in that. That was a big deal to get that to happen in our part of the country and to happen in Michigan. But the individuals who lead that effort have agreed to help host some speaker conversations remotely so that we can start to get that information about how this looks other places here, because we can't all do all the site visits, but it's great to have people who will talk with us. We're also doing that with an organization called the Institute of Local Self-Reliance, who focuses on composting at the community scale. I'll be attending a summit in New York, the 10th of May through the 13th, where we'll be able to talk about the best practices that have been captured in a report specific on how to do composting done right at the community scale, and do site visits to several locations in New York. So we'll be giving a report out on that after that event. May 5th through May 11th is International Compost Week, and this year's focus is around climate change and composting. So stay tuned. We'll be doing a bit of an email campaign to just share information, everything you didn't know but should know about how the 2 things are related, and that'll keep you updated on what's going on there. Our subcommittee meets on the first Thursday of each month at 9 a.m. right here at the MSU Detroit Center, and we'd look forward to seeing you join us.
sorry, I just had a question. It was actually about the greenhouse gas.
I can't hear you.
It was actually about the greenhouse gas ordinance. I don't know if this is the right time. Sorry, does anybody have a question about composting?
Hi, Michelle Martinez, Michigan Environmental Justice Coalition. Thanks. I had a question about the greenhouse gas ordinance. You said it's been already introduced to the council. Okay. So we were reviewing the greenhouse gas ordinance and feel like it can be strengthened in a number of different ways, particularly because there's an environmental advisory council that's established within, and the powers are to review the air quality specifically towards the greenhouse gas initiative. And so we'd like to request that a community meeting actually be held about the Environmental Justice Advisory Committee specifically, because as you know, environmental justice is not just about air, but also water and other issues. So we drafted a letter specifically to ask that it be extended and a community meeting be hosted, particularly about the Environmental Justice Advisory Committee.
Okay.
Great.
Anything else? Michelle, let me address that. So number one, thank you very much for that suggestion. This is something I was going to get to later as well. So we did introduce that, and we sent out the draft ordinance to the community. We got a lot of feedback. People would like to see that ordinance strengthened. And so I got a lot of language, and I got a lot of emails saying strengthen it. I didn't get a lot of language, people giving me a letter of this nature saying this is exactly what we'd like to see. So my request today was going to be, please, if you'd like to see some changes, provide some language and some suggestions of what you want to see change, and you've done that. So I'm going to use this as an example of how what would help us to get to an ordinance that you would like to see. So please send us the information, email myself, email Kerwin, and right now, since we're done with budget, we're going to return our focus to getting this done. Hopefully we can get an ordinance done before we go on recess in late August, or excuse me, in late July. So we'd love to have something done and on the books, and we're looking at what other cities are doing, and so we don't want to be middle of the road. We actually, like I said earlier, want to be the tip of the spear. And so what Chicago has raise a pretty high bar, but I also just don't want to put numbers in a document that aren't achievable and that we don't intend to even try to achieve. So I want to do something that's realistic and achievable with the ability to hold the administration's feet to the fire and say, hey, this is what the ordinance says, this is what you're supposed to do, let's get it done. It's great to have an ordinance or a resolution that says you're going to do something, but if you really don't have the intent to do it and you set the goal for 16 years from now, when very few of us will be here watching, it doesn't do any good. But I do want to see achievable, realistic, yet challenging goals established for our greenhouse gas ordinance. So thank you for this, and this will be a great start.
I think I heard Michelle say something about like environmental justice communities specifically. I didn't hear you address that in your answer. Like what special efforts are you going to take to make sure you're reaching everyone? Because a lot of folks are not going to like sit and draft an email to you.
So I did address that, and the way that I would address that is I'm asking for your feedback. So we've put out a draft ordinance. So this is the language we put out. Now, if you have questions about it, you want to see them changes, let me know what you want to see changed. And so Michelle has given specific changes she'd like to see. This wasn't addressed, please address this. So what I'm doing now is asking for the community's feedback. And so this is why we do that, and this is why you have the public hearing process, and this is why we ask for your input as well, because we don't have all the answers, but you all can help us put together a much better law and ordinance than what we initially submitted. So this is why we're asking for your feedback.
And on that ordinance, just wanted to let everyone know that it was a heavy lift. When I mean heavy, I mean very heavy. And we had to do a lot of fighting to get to the point that where we are now. So we welcome your feedback, and we're going to try to do the best that we can, but just understand that there are some challenges of getting what we want and getting what we have. So there's some challenges. Just want everyone to know that, so that if it was a perfect world, we have everything that we would like, but it's not perfect. So just want to put an emphasis on that.
So what I'm going to do is put a pin in that one, because we still have one last subcommittee to report out, and then we'll go directly to that. And it seems like that's going to be a stronger conversation. So before we finish up the meeting today, let's get energy waste reduction. I don't think we have anybody here from the climate control Do we have a climate control today? No. So energy waste reduction, and then we'll go to the greenhouse gas ordinance. I really do want to talk about that.
Thank you. Hi, everyone. I'm Kendall Kuhneman. I'm from Energy Sciences. And Ben DeWicki and I recently started the new Energy Waste Reduction Subcommittee. We just had our second meeting last week. We had a great turnout, and I'm really excited about this new subcommittee. So we are trying to focus on, or kind of hone in on what this group is going, what our priorities are going to be for 2019, and probably a little bit beyond, because we have some big goals here. But what we've done is, I think we've agreed on goals for each sector, both in the municipal, residential, and commercial sectors. And I just wanted to update the group on those. So on the municipal side, our goal is to pass an energy benchmarking and transparency ordinance. So we have been looking at some of the best practices in major cities across the US and how they get started on energy waste reduction targets. And it always begins with this ordinance, and typically with municipal buildings first reporting on what their energy usage is and water usage. So that's why we felt like this was an important place to start. We have a Wayne State University student, Colleen Lynn, who is going to be doing some research for us on the city energy project and looking into that. On the residential side, an energy rating and disclosure policy. So I think we're still trying to figure out what this might look like, but this would be at the time of sale, some sort of standard energy assessment of a home that's provided to the new homeowner on how the home performs on an energy basis. And going even a step further with that, potentially working with the cities, with BSEED on rental properties, so that renters know what the energy usage of that home has been historically. And then on the commercial side, partnering with DTE and kind of continuing this conversation that was started in 2017 to implement a green button data import functionality, also known as Portfolio Manager Web Services. So DTE implemented a new billing system in April of 2017, and there was a conversation with DTE, with the EPA and Energy Star, with the City of Detroit, and with ComEd, which is the utility in the Chicago area, about how DTE could automatically import data from their billing system into the Energy Star Portfolio Manager. So this would be huge because people would have the big hurdle right now with the Detroit 2030 district and what their goals are is reporting energy usage data, and it's a big task for people to take their bill and have to manually enter that data. So this would make it really easy for people. So with DTE's new billing system, it has this capability, and we'd like to continue that conversation. So we meet the second Tuesday of every month. May 14th, we're going to be meeting at Walker Miller Energy Services going forward. And because we're so new, if anybody wants to be on our email distribution list, come find me afterwards.
Thank you. And so one of the things I did here, if you want to talk about an energy assessment, if you can get us some numbers on that. So one of the concerns would be if we were to implement that and make that a requirement would be how much would it cost a homeowner to do that? Or how much would it cost a landlord to do that as well? So those are items that go into account. But if you can get us an understanding of what that number is, it helps towards a conversation of how to implement something of that nature. And so let's get back to Regina, you had a question?
I just wanted to let you guys know that the deadline for the hearing comments on those permits has been extended to the 23rd. Just got that email.
And just some feedback, if you talk to MDQ typically and say, hey, we need more time, they've been responsive. And so my experience with them on the few issues that we've had in my district has been if you talk to them, they are responsive. They'll typically extend the comment period. So there were some more questions and feedback regarding the greenhouse gas ordinance?
I was just going to comment that, and I appreciate what Kerwin said about it being a heavy lift, but in that process, at least to my understanding, there weren't any community meetings or there weren't public hearings. a console for the community to lift up its voice and its support. And sometimes that's helpful in moving the powers that be if the community is around the table to push back. So in your process going forward, look for ways to do that, because that's what we're here for.
And so, very good point. And so, on this one, the timing is it's been introduced, but we haven't had a public hearing yet. We're not at that stage just yet. And so, we do have an ordinance that was approved to form by the law department, which was the heavy lift. Even getting the ordinance to the table was the hard part. Now that we have it at the table in the public realm, this is where we now ask for community support input, which is what we're doing now. And what, if I'm not mistaken, Corinne, we've done via email, we've asked for feedback, and we're going to be holding the informal conversations. The state law requires, and this is the entitlement part, that we have a public hearing at a certain point. We don't have language that we want to actually bring before the public hearing yet, so we're looking for your feedback. So this is where your input, as you said, is very, very important, because once we have the public hearing, typically that language at that point is locked in. The language isn't locked in yet. So you introduce an ordinance, it gets to the formal table, and then you refer it back to committee. During the committee process is when you have the debate, you finalize the language, and then you have the state-mandated public hearing. Now, once you have the public hearing on the language, then that language is locked in. It can't be changed again unless you want to go through the whole process again. And so we haven't locked that language in. So now is the time when we're asking for your feedback, and we really need and want your input on how we can strengthen that ordinance to include that type of community engagement that you're asking for, and how that committee will, what they'll look at. And so this is where we're asking for your input. So we're not there yet, it hasn't been locked in yet. So this is the part where we're looking for your feedback. So we're at that point now.
I was just going to say, logistically, it's a PDF document, and it's really hard to do. It's harder to give input on a PDF document than it is if it's a Google Doc, and I know you want to protect its originality or whatever, but it's a lot easier to make suggestions that way.
Oops, sorry. I was also, I understand the process, but, and I don't want to misrepresent what you asked for, but also what Lia pointed out, if we could, as part of the input process, actually have some sort of town hall or some sort of convening where people can learn about the language and then give direct impact, that would be really wonderful, and we'd be more than happy to help put that together. And because that way we can also, down the line, if we're adding more teeth to this, encourage community to reach out directly to their city council member and say, this is why we advocated for this, and please continue to support it.
So all of those are good suggestions, all things that we plan to do. So like I said before, we're still very early in this process, and this one has taken a long time. So we've been here a year and a half now working on this ordinance. It took us a year, well, we've been a long time. So it took us a while to get it. Yeah, so it took us this long just to get it to the table where it's been approved to form. There's a lot of pushback. And so this has been a very heavy lift. Now, that's no excuse why it doesn't get done, but it just goes to show you the path which it has to take legally to get to this point. And now that we're here, we're still working on it. And so now we have a document that the community has said we don't support in its current form. Fine, good. So give us the feedback, and this is where we start. And so this is the sausage-making process of legislation. And so what I also want to do is manage expectations. Just because we want it in there doesn't mean that's what will end up being in there. Number one, there may be some legal issues. We can't, the legislature can't dictate how the administration does its job. We can set goals and tell you what needs to happen, but we can't tell you how to lay the street or how high you put it. So just certain things we can't do, but when we talk about what we want that to look like, what the goals we want you to set, we can do that. So just want to manage expectations, and we also need 5 votes out of 9 people to make a legislation happen. And so it's great to have a form of legislation that you like and everybody's happy with, but if we don't only get 4 votes, it doesn't get implemented. So sometimes you're not going to see everything that you want, and a good piece of legislation will leave everybody a little bit mad and will make a lot of people a little bit happy as well. And so you just got to be, it's the give and take when it comes to the legislative process. And we're starting it now. We have the ordinance introduced, we have a legal document, and it's in the public realm. And so we can also hold those type of community meetings in town halls. And we can get you a document that you can actually manipulate and work yourself and send us back language. Michelle, you had another question? I'm glad to have you on the microphone.
Appreciate you taking the questions. Yeah, my question is actually around the political difficulty, because I understand that, you know, climate change and greenhouse gas reductions are a difficult thing, especially when we talk about cost infrastructure. But I'm curious about the difficulty. It seems that actually the ordinance is fairly narrow. It just looks at municipal buildings. It doesn't look at industrial point source pollution. It doesn't look at transportation emissions. And so you know, the mayor himself has signed the mayoral climate agreement, so I'm wondering what the rub is. Even the targets for the municipal buildings are less than what the mayoral climate agreement actually states. So can you give us some insights about what that is?
So welcome to the sausage making process. So it always seems these things, and I tell people this all the time, you're going to have to give me a momentary suspension of disbelief when we go into the legislative process. What you would think would be typical and how it should work is not always how it does. But we can get it there, and so that's my job. And on some of those items, I'll talk to you offline about that, because what I do want to do is still create an environment where people feel comfortable at the city council table having those conversations and being open to the conversation. And what you don't want to do is back anyone into a corner or have a narrative or an environment where people don't want to support just based on some of the things that have happened in the past. So we're still working very hard, and I believe we have a speaker. Yeah, I think, yeah. So we have somebody else we want to speak, correct? Yeah. Okay, yes. So come on up. So I hope that works. And so I'm more than happy to have a conversation with you afterwards about how we got here and why it's taking so long. But I still am very, very optimistic that we're going to get to where we want to be and have a much stronger ordinance than what we have that's been introduced. We still have a long way to go, and we're going to get there. But I also want to manage expectations about what the ultimate document will look like. And we now have some targets about, and I want to make it very clear, that's a resolution, not an ordinance, that was passed in Chicago. We're putting together an ordinance. I could put a resolution together that says we are going to have 0 emissions by next year. That's a resolution. That's speak. An ordinance is the law. And so we're working on a law now. It's a little bit different. And so thank you for coming out today. And so MDQ is here again. So more from the state.
Okay. Hi there, thanks for the opportunity to join you all today. Maybe you heard from Regina already? Yeah. Excellent, isn't she the best? We're so lucky to have her. So I don't know what she said, so I don't want to be repetitive. So I'll just give you a little bit about me and about what it is that we're up to. So I'm Lisa Clark, I'm the director of the DEQ. On Monday, we're EAGLE, the Environment, Great Lakes, and Energy. So we're really looking forward to the transition. You may have seen, we unveiled our new logo yesterday. As I told our team yesterday, it's not about the logo. It's not about the name of the organization. We come from about 100 years of history in Michigan, because in Michigan we care about our natural resources. And initially it was the Conservation Commission. It's not about the title, it's about the work that we do every day to protect public health and the environment. And it's about the work that we do as a team to be there for the citizens of the state of Michigan. So I'm really looking forward to this new chapter. I've enjoyed my first 100 days. I'm so proud of the work of this department, and I think that there's a lot of continuing effort to get better, but I'm looking forward to doing it with this team. So with that, I don't want to go into too much more because I'm not sure what Regina said to you, and I don't want to be repetitive. I appreciate the chance to be here. I'm excited about the work of this group, and I'm also excited about how we might be able to work together, particularly with the Office of Climate and Energy. So thanks for the opportunity, and if there's anything I can do, I look forward to doing so.
All right. So thank you for coming today. So real quick, do we have any questions? 3 questions? Number 1, you got to get you on the microphone. Do we have 2 more questions? Just 1 question? 2? Cutting off at 2. Come on.
Are you going to be at the FEI hearing today?
I am not going to be at the Fiat hearing today. I just left some folks on my team that will be there, and I think it should be a really good turnout. We're really looking forward to the input that we hear. I have been encouraging us, and we're going to continue working towards having more early and regular communication. And also, one of the things that I've emphasized with the team is thinking about how to have communication in a different way so that we're providing information in a way that people are more able to understand how it impacts them as a community member. And frankly, it's also encouraging the regulated community to do the same thing because we're there on behalf of the state. Communities that or companies that are coming in and wanting to do projects, they need to also be communicating with the folks in the community. So we're going to continue to emphasize that. Maggie?
Nice to see you. Good to see you too. Wanted to just emphasize that with the opportunity for the department to focus on air emissions around mobile source transportation, that the stated emphasis on areas where there is non-attainment, particularly Wayne County as a priority county, that funding that's available through the Diesel Emissions Reduction Act and the Volkswagen money really does come this way. Just want to emphasize that and flag it for your offices. And want to say we appreciate you being here and being present. We're interested in seeing that continue. So thank you so much. Okay.
So last one.
Appreciate it, Maggie.
Michelle?
Hi, Liesl. Good to see you again. Michelle Martinez, MEJC. You know, we've been in conversation, Regina and others, about cumulative impact that, you know, we deal with permits pretty often, and we're always saying the same thing. You know, we can't look at this permit in isolation. The ambient air quality monitors just aren't giving us a good picture of what the actual impact is. We have demonstrated impact of higher cancer rates and asthma rates. How can we get to cumulative impact with the new Eagle office?
So you saved the easy question for last, Michelle, is that right?
Of course. I got all the easy questions.
Yeah, I mean, it's a challenge, right? And I actually just left a group of folks here in our Cadillac office, and they said that this is the most sophisticated community groups in the state. Because that's true, because you all have been working these issues for a really long time, unfortunately, right? But it is the most sophisticated group when it comes to understanding how do all these pieces fit together. I think that there's still work to do to try to figure out, you know, how do you thread all of the different impacts together. So I hear what you're saying, and in fact, we were just talking about in the office the other day. I don't have all the answers, but I'm looking forward to working on it with you, and I'm thrilled to have Regina on board. We've been working together for a while, and I'm super excited that she's taking on the EJ Public Advocate role officially on Monday. I think she's a great asset, and I think that we've got some, it's not easy, you know? These are not easy challenges, and I can't wave a magic wand, but I'm looking forward to partnering on trying to find solutions.
So thank you for coming out today. Appreciate you. Great.
Thanks for having me.
Thanks for being here. Okay, so anything for the good of the group before we end up today? Kerwin?
We need volunteers for Earth Day. Everyone here, hope to see you on Saturday. We're going to have a fantastic celebration. Our speaker is here today observing and looking, and so we can get some great nuggets, but he has a great speech for us. That's Dr. Dorsey, and just want everyone to come out and let's celebrate. I think we've done a great job this year thus far, and we're going to do some greater things, but let's celebrate our warriors that's been out there doing the work in the community and ourselves as well. So see you Saturday. Thank you.
Wait,
hold on.
Good to the group.
Yes. Hi, Carol Miller had to leave from Wayne State Healthy Urban Waters, but she asked me to announce that they're having a symposium on May 20th, the Healthy Urban Waters. This is a way for us to, we talked about researchers and scientists, so this is a way for us to kind of connect and learn what they're going on. We're in the research corridor with U of M, Michigan State, and Wayne State, so it's great research that can kind of help us with all of our issues, water quality and air quality. But we need to kind of be interested and go out and hear what they have to say and what they're doing and how what they're doing can help us. So hopefully you'll be able to attend. Registration is still open for that. And then for anyone who works with students, Michelle, eriehack.io. There's going to be a competition for high school students to come up with solutions to protect Lake Erie. $1,600 in prize money and development opportunities for Erie Hack. eriehack.io. That's it. Thanks.
Anything else? All right, with nothing else to come before this body, we're about to stand. Before we do that, can we get a group photo with DEQ? Can we get a group photo? Everybody okay with that? Group photo? All right, this body will stand adjourned.